Hello, authors, book lovers, and storytellers, and welcome to another exciting episode of Reader's Magnet featured author interview, where we dive deep into the world of creativity and inspiration. And our guest for today is a leading expert in obesity with over 40 years of experience in pulmonology, internal medicine, and critical care. And he is recognized for pioneering research on the links between environmental pollutants and obesity, developing the AIPE or the APE program to address these factors. Also, he co-founded Trilon Corporation, advancing early cancer detection technologies, and has held key roles, including assistant professor at the UCSD and consultant to the San Diego Department of Public Health. He serves on the boards of NutraPharma Corporation and Histologics Corporation, and he is also a very well-respected author. And Dr. Lonky remains a sought-after speaker, medical legal expert, and he also co-wrote Invisible Killers, The Truth About Environmental Genocide, and is now talking about his book, Outsmarting Obesity. A doctor reveals why we gain weight, why it matters, and what we can do about it, offering new insights on the global obesity crisis. So without further ado, please help me welcome Dr. Stewart Lonky. So Dr. Lonky, how are you doing today?
Doing great. Thank you very much for it.
Well, Dr. Lonky, thank you much, and thank you much for joining us today at the Hive. Though, really love to see your insight, and I've seen a couple of your interviews in the past, being also in broadcast and news anchors doing interviews about this. But again, having this book out here, Outsmarting Obesity. Please, if you don't mind, please tell us, like, what inspired you to write this book, and what makes it different from other books talking about obesity?
Well, what inspired me was the fact that so many of my patients are overweight or obese, and I realized that was getting more and more, and they became more and more difficult to manage. Nothing made that more clear probably than the COVID pandemic when obese patients didn't do very well. But what makes this book different is that about 10 years ago, I started to recognize we were spending so much money. Nearly $3 trillion of American money has been spent in the last 50 years on diet plans, diet foods, exercise plans, so on. $3 trillion. And you know what we've gotten for that? We've gone from 14% obesity to 43% obesity.
Wait,
Doesn't sound like that was money well spent. I think we
it
wasted a
doesn't.
lot of money. So I realized we were doing something wrong, and I needed to try and figure out what it was. So that's what's different about this book. What's different is that it's a real holistic approach to obesity. It drills down on myths and goes into what's really going on. And I believe that the science, and it's very heavily referenced, will show the reader exactly what is happening and why we're gaining weight. And the fact is, it's written in everyday language, that it's not confusing.
No, good, love it. And talking about the books, though, and again, coming back with the numbers you presented earlier, from 14%. Oh, if correct me if I'm miscoding a number here, 14% to 43%, and that was in considering that was money not well spent when it comes with trying to counteract when it comes with the health crisis here. But doctor, also coming back with your book here and talking about obesity itself, what are some common misconceptions about obesity that you hope readers will reconsider after reading your book? Because I know that there's a lot, but there are some things that are being discussed in your book as well.
Yes, and the common misconception is that this all has to do with calories. The common misconception is it's a matter of willpower, that people are obese because they eat too much. Certainly, people are obese because they eat, but whether it's too much or way too much is not the issue. The common misconception is it's calories in, calories out. If you eat less and exercise more, you're going to lose weight. Well, $3 trillion and the statistics I just dictated say that doesn't work. That just has not worked. And you know what the misconception is? Everybody can lose weight. Rob, anybody can lose weight. I've practiced 40 years. I've treated 10,000 patients. I will tell you unequivocally, anybody can lose weight. You know what they can't do?
What?
Keep it off. They can't keep it off. As soon as they go off a restrictive diet or a medication or a shot or this or that, and they go back to trying to manage their own calories and stuff like that. It's not that they eat too many calories, it's that the food doesn't work. And we see that in laboratory animals. I went back and did research in the literature as to what the models were. And the models show that even in laboratory animals that are on a very strict diet, do
Mm-hmm.
you realize that laboratory animals are getting fatter? Do you realize that it's not just us people that are getting fatter, our pets are getting fatter?
Yeah, I've noticed. I've noticed.
Animals in the wild are getting fatter. Whoa, wait a second. Here's one that'll really throw you for a loop. Here's what I
Sure.
go into in the book. Newborns are getting fatter. Over the past 40 years, newborns have increased in weight
Mm-hmm.
almost 25%. That's pretty remarkable because newborns, fetuses, the last time I checked, were not going to 7-Eleven. They weren't buying
Yeah.
Twinkies. They weren't missing at the gym. I mean, they're in the uterus, and yet they're getting fatter. And I realized something else is going on here that we haven't really made everyone aware of. Whether it's purposeful or not purposeful, the science is there. All you have
Hmm.
to do is go read the literature. It pertains to humans and it pertains to animals. So that's what the misconception is. Man, if I just go on a diet, I'll lose the weight. But
Yeah.
that just doesn't happen. And we can't afford to continue the way we're going because the problem is that we have so many obese children, childhood
Hmm.
diabetes. I'm even seeing kids with obstructive sleep apnea. Is that amazing? Kids.
Yeah. Wait, what?
Yeah.
These are things that yeah, if you just, because if you go day by day though, like every year is going to be the same year, you don't notice these differences. But now thinking about if you compare it through a long period of time and trying to put these numbers up, like again talking about infants that are getting heavier and heavier, talking about kids who have sleep apnea, which is something that you wouldn't even expect in the first place. And do, but in your book, Dr. Lonky, does it talk about why these things happen in the first place, or is there a main reason why these changes are happening currently? I'm sorry, just out of curiosity here.
Yeah, we do. That's the main focus of the book to make people aware of the fact that, look, something's going on that's different, and
Hmm.
something's going on that we don't understand yet. But we have to understand it. We have to get smarter about it if you're going to outsmart it. Here's what's going on. Your initial response of everybody, oh, it's in the genes. It's genetic. It's in the DNA. No, it's not. There is no fat gene. That's number one. In fact, there are 140 genes in the human genome that are involved with weight gain or loss.
Hmm.
140 genes. Well, that was an eye opener for me. And I realized, oh my gosh, it's not the gene that's changed. The DNA hasn't changed. But for example, you have a gene
Okay.
that dictates whether or not a new cell that's forming in a fetus or in you becomes a fat cell or a muscle cell.
Hmm.
What if that gene's instructions were make fat cells, don't make muscle cells? Ah, well, why would that happen? Well, it happens because of little changes that occur on the surface of the gene. Those changes are called which means over or on the surface of, epigenetic changes. And people are going to hear more and more and more about epigenetics because these epigenetic changes, small chemical molecules, a carbon with three hydrogens, known as a methyl group, methyl, not
Hmm.
ethyl, that's a lady, methyl. Methyl is the group and methyl groups attach right onto the surface of the gene, and they either turn it on or turn it off.
Oh.
Ha! Well, where do these methyl groups come from? Well, now you have to go into a different kind of literature. It's more scientific. You know where it comes from? Chemical toxins, chemicals in our environment. You know what? At the time of John Kennedy's inauguration in 1961, when he was upset at a 14% obesity rate, there was no Teflon. We didn't have nonstick cookware. We didn't have fireproof pajamas. Well, those things are good and they're convenient. But you know what they do? They cause methyl groups to attach to our DNA. And so we have become epigenetically coded to defeat a diet. That is what has happened. And the worst part is it is transgenerational. That's a fancy word for saying the epigenetic changes that occur in a mother are passed on to the fetus, are passed on to the next generation. In fact, at least 4 generations are affected. So that mothers that have gone through a famine, that give birth, the children tend to be obese because epigenetic changes have happened on those children's genes, not because of chemical exposures, but because of situational exposure. Those are epigenetic changes as well. So the good news is that you can change the epigenetics. You can't change your genes. I mean, you can change your genes with a J, but you can't change your genes with a G. So those you can't change. But you know what? Epigenetic changes can be changed. They can be reversed. And that's where my program AIPE comes in. Except you have to accept the fact that you are toxic, that every one of us is carrying a toxic burden. Let me just tell you something, Rob. There are 85,000 chemicals in common use in the United States, all cleared for use by the Federal Trade Commission, not the FDA. They don't care. Okay? 85,000 chemicals, room fresheners, everything from room fresheners to nonstick cookware to nonstick fabrics on your carpeting or your whatever, and every kind of chemical you want to know. And many of them, many, not all, but many of them, too many, are what we call obesogens. They are chemicals which are known to create epigenetic changes. So, accept the fact that you're carrying a load. The average newborn has over 200 chemicals in their blood at birth. Over 200. Now that baby hasn't even been born yet. They're getting them from the mother. Goes across the placenta. So that's accept. Next is identify. You start identifying where all these things are. Do you keep your cleaning material in your kitchen where you prepare food? That's not smart.
No, that's not good.
You shouldn't, but many people do. Okay. And what kind of cleaning materials are you using? Can you opt for something that's non-toxic, that doesn't have as much chemical? Women sometimes get their chemicals through their skin because makeup contains something called parabens. Parabens help the long life of a cosmetic. Unfortunately, they're also obesogens. They cause epigenetic changes and obesity. So we start to identify. Then you need to prevent. Prevent means, all right, let's stop putting these things in our body. Well, how do we do that? It's in our world. You can get rid of your nonstick cookware like I did. But if I go out to a restaurant, how do I know what they did? How do I know what the muffin at Starbucks was made with? We don't know. Okay? We don't know. So you're going to get these chemicals no matter how clean you think your life is. And the fact is, if I could prevent you from absorbing them, because most of these chemicals get into our bodies because we eat them or drink them. So if I could prevent their absorption, now that we could do. And there are ways to do that. And we go into that in the book. And the last step is, all right, I've got some of them in my body already. Can I get them out? Answer, yes. There are ways to get them out. It's not easy, but there are technologies, and they're not procedures. Some of them are natural compounds that have been shown experimentally to remove and eliminate these toxic chemicals from our bodies. Is it important for everybody? Yes. Who's it most important for? Mothers that are going to have babies,
Mm-hmm.
okay? Young children,
Okay.
women who are pregnant, because how do we stop this march to obesity, to an ever fattening population, if we can't reverse these problems? And that's what the APE program goes into in my book.
Really love it. And I really love the breakdown though when it comes with, because again, the problem is there, it's being addressed, but it's not a problem that you just need to leave alone. It's a problem that it's being addressing. Hence with your APE program that you're doing right now. And again, Dr. Lonky, again, talking about your book as well, that it goes into detail, talking more about this, how to provide and help people who want to, again, be better when it comes with their epigenetics, again talking about environmental factors, how to make sure they can live a toxic free life. But again, there is still a stigma that stays along with people talking about obesity. And again, in your book, just want to ask you, how do you tackle the stigma surrounding obesity, and why is it important right now to shift the narrative then?
I think there's two stigmas. One is that there's a misconception that it all has to do with willpower. And I do that in the book in somewhat humorous fashion and sometimes serious fashion, kind of mix them together, showing that, there is a misconception that people who are obese because they eat too much and it's their own choice. That's not true. It is just not true. And you read the book and you'll understand unfortunately, you are a subject of the epigenetic changes that happen to your great grandfather and great grandmother. That's a problem that you can't fix that, but you can reverse it. And now the second misconception and stigma that is more worrisome to me is the movement of body acceptance and the concept of people thinking there's such a thing as healthy fat.
Yes.
There is not something called healthy fat. You can be momentarily metabolically normal and be obese, but you're not healthy. So don't ever think that. This started a few years back where people were embracing their largeness. We have some people who are influencers and singers and dancers, and I won't mention names, but I think people know who I'm talking about. Even she lost weight recently because she recognized that it's not healthy to be fat. In fact, the data from huge population studies, hundreds of thousands of people followed over the years, obesity is associated with diabetes, heart disease, and cancer, period. And there is no health in those diseases. You don't change that by exercising a lot and eating organic foods. And you can go on a diet and lose the weight, but now how are you going to stop from gaining it? The APE program, if you put that in place all the time, then you can go on a diet for 3 months, hold that weight for a few months, and then if you need to lose more, go back on a diet. You have to stabilize your metabolism. But you have to keep those epigenetic changes from happening and try to reverse as many as you can.
Love that. Love that. And you know what? Dr. Lonky, thank you very much for that, though. And again, talking about your book and talking about these information right now is more of an eye opener in thinking about. Again, even I am also a victim of thinking that being obese is because of calories, but it's not really calories that's the issue here. It's the environment is really causing these events right now, and it's, if ever I can fix it, at least there's still a way for me to reverse these factors. And you know what? To all of our viewers, though, and again, to all of our viewers and book lovers, be sure to grab a copy. And I am highly recommending to grab a copy right now of Dr. Stewart Lonky's book. Again, that's Outsmarting Obesity. A doctor reveals why we gain weight, why it matters, and what we can do about it. Because again, it's not too late. This might be your chance for you to reverse these effects with you. Okay. And again, you know what, Dr. Lonky, thank you very much for that. And again, if you want to also get some updates for Dr. Lonky, though, feel free to check out his website. That's Dr. Lonky. That's DRLONKY.com. You can get some updates, and you can also purchase his book, available through Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And you know what, Dr. Lonky, just want to say this. Thank you very much for joining us today and providing us these eye-opening statements, and also this knowledge that even I myself was also a victim of thinking what was the norm. And just like to say, really thank you very much for for joining us today when it comes to this interview.
My pleasure. Anytime.
Okay. And you know what? To all of our viewers, though, thank you much for tuning in. And once again, though, Dr. Stewart Lonky's book, feel free to get his book. That is Outsmarting Obesity, available through online resellers, Amazon, Barnes& and Noble, and also through his website. And again, always remember, thank you much for tuning in. And please remember that every ending is just a new beginning, the world of stories. May your reading adventures be endless and your imagination boundless. And as we say here at Reader's Magnet, we share your stories with the world. Thank you and have a good one. Thank you, Doc.
Thanks.